Hello, everybody, and welcome back to What's the Obsession. I'm Kelly, the creator of this true crime channel. This video is going to be doing some deep diving into the Kouri Richins case. Just you wait, it's a good one. I'm so glad that you're here watching this video. Please take a moment to click like and subscribe. We definitely want you to come back. This is a community-based channel. I read all of your comments and I love them. And we always look forward to our lively chats and discussions and live streams on Friday evenings and other days of the week. In fact, we have a great one coming up for you this week when we will be featuring special guest, famous author, and our very favorite true crime author, Kathleen Hewtsen, who has all of the inside scoops on the Kouri Richins case as she prepares and researches for an upcoming book on this case. So do y'all remember Kouri Richins? She's the 33-year-old mother of three accused of murdering her husband, Eric Richins. She currently sits in a Utah County jail awaiting trial, or at least her next hearing, under charges of aggravated murder and drug possession. Kouri is accused of administering a lethal dose of over 5 times the lethal amount of fentanyl to her husband on that fateful evening. And recent findings, including some autopsy findings, indicate that she may have also given him her own antipsychotic drug, Seroquel, that could have contributed to his death. That's one of the many topics we're going to be talking about with Kathleen. Richins' housekeeper, who is known as CL, and that's due to her text messages between herself and this person in which she called her CL, tells authorities that, oh, by the way, CL is a convicted drug dealer. Felony counts. She's done her thing. She's done her time. She tells authorities that on 2 occasions, she gave Richins over 30 pills of fentanyl. And by the way, these 2 occasions were within a month of Eric's death. CL claims that Kouri Richins paid $900 for each time that she gave her a batch of fentanyl. Kouri Richins, who seemingly had no idea it was coming, was arrested in May of 2023, over a year after Eric's death. And this was after she authored and published a children's book entitled Are You With Me? That she says she wrote to help her 3 young sons deal with the death of their father, Eric. Kouri Richins' mother, Lisa Darden, who was recently featured in A 48 Hours, says that this book did, in fact, help the 3 of them get through Eric's death. Now, by all accounts, Eric was a loving father and a loving, albeit suspicious husband, as he told his family and friends, allegedly, that Kouri tried to poison him on at least 2 occasions prior to that fateful evening when Eric lost his life. Additionally, after Kouri did some things that were suspicious to Eric, including getting into some accounts he didn't believe she had access to and spending some money he didn't know about, he put his wealth into a secret trust, naming his sister as the executor to help ensure that his wealth and assets would benefit his children in the event of his untimely death. This secret trust essentially overrode the prenup agreement between Kouri and Eric Richins that said that she wouldn't be getting any of his wealth in the case of their divorce. In fact, she wouldn't be getting any of it except for in the event of his death while they were still married. Could that have been a fateful agreement signed by both Eric and Kouri? There's so many details of this twisted case that we'll be talking about in this video and successive videos to come, and very much so on this coming Friday night's live stream with author Kathleen Hewtsen. But you should know that the prosecution maintains that Kouri's motive for murdering her husband Eric was financial. She thought that she was going to be gaining all of the assets that Eric had accumulated through his hard work before and during their marriage. And there were some life insurance policies, some big insurance policies. Kouri's family, her mother, and her 2 brothers assert that Kouri is completely innocent and that Kouri and Eric were in a very loving marriage. But there are some circumstances in this case that indicate that that may not have been the case, and that may not have been anything that anyone who knew the 2 really believed. In the next video I'm going to put out about Kouri Richins, we're going to take a look at a letter that she wrote in jail that's infamously known as the walk the dog letter. And oh boy, the secrets that we are going to uncover are absolutely mind-blowing as it pertains to this case. So here are some facts that we know about the Kouri Richins case and the latest and greatest facts that have been revealed and put out to the public. Wait until you hear this. It is an absolutely fascinating true crime case, and I'm so glad that you're on board with me following this case.
Kouri Richins is her name. She's accused of poisoning and killing her husband Eric back in 2022 after he died of a fentanyl overdose. Her attorney says she maintains her innocence. In a primetime exclusive interview with Natalie Morales, Kouri Richins' mom shares new details about what she says happened the night Eric Richins died.
Kouri Richins says she found her husband Eric unresponsive in their bed. She called 911 and then her mother
Get up here, something's happened to Eric.
It was too late to save the father of 3.
Did the boys know what was happening?
They could see the ambulances and cops coming in. Very distraught.
Hours earlier, the couple was celebrating a new house flipping deal Kouri was working on.
She told me she made him a Moscow Mule.
Police said that Eric's death was caused by an overdose of fentanyl, but according to the spokesperson for Eric's family, Greg Skordas, that didn't make sense.
So Lisa says Kouri wrote a children's book, Are You With Me?, that follows a boy who lost his father but is reminded his presence still exists all around. Kouri promoted the book on local TV. But a month after that appearance,
a Summit County woman who wrote a children's book about coping with grief following her husband's death, now accused of being the one that actually killed him.
Eric's family suspects Richins placed the fentanyl in that Moscow Mule.
He told his family, if I die, you need to take a look at her because I think she's trying to kill me.
Kouri Richins has maintained her innocence. Sky Lazaro is her attorney.
They have to prove that she obtained drugs and gave them to her husband. And unless they can connect those dots, they're going to have a hard time proving murder in this case.
You know, police interviewed Eric's family, and they firmly believe that Kouri was involved in Eric's death. They said the couple had been arguing over that multi-million-dollar property. Eric apparently did not want to be a part of that. They also said that Eric told them that if anything happened to him, that he believed that Kouri was out to get him and that Kouri would be to blame, as you heard his lawyer or the spokesperson say for the family. And they also told police that they suspected Kouri had tried twice to kill him before and had failed. Now, this is all according to court documents. And Kouri's family, however, disputes all of this, says there is no proof or nor evidence of any of this.
Wow, it's just an amazing story. And then to go out and write a children's book about it. And also pretty unusual stuff when you tell your family, if I end up dead, you need to look right over here at my spouse. That's notable stuff.
And I want to start with like this big bombshell. And when we thought about who to ask, you know, we're coming to you. So according to this newly unsealed search warrant from, I believe, the sheriff's office, in Eric's autopsy, the medical examiner's office noted that there was a small amount of, and I hope I don't butcher the name here, quetiapine. Am I saying that? How do I say it?
Quetiapine.
Quetiapine. Also,
yeah.
And Seroquel, and that was
Seroquel. Yeah, let's roll with Seroquel. How's that?
Seroquel. Let's roll with that. It was found in Eric's stomach.
Right.
What is this drug, and what do you make of it?
Okay, the drug essentially is an antipsychotic, and it's actually prescribed for people that are dealing with issues regarding schizophrenia most of the time, and also associated depressive disorders when they're like in a manic phase. So a physician would prescribe it to somebody with severe bipolar disorder, perhaps, and it's a dangerous drug. It's very dangerous, and apparently, as Miss Richins is concerned, this drug had allegedly been prescribed to her for a sleep aid.
Well, let's be clear about that. So she says. So let's back this up, right? So this drug, you're right, treats things like bipolar disorder, schizophrenia. But according to the search warrant affidavit, Kouri had a prescription for this. Eric did not. And Kouri told detectives that it was used as a sleeping aid, but the medical examiner, as far as I can tell, said that is not what this drug is used for.
Yeah, and it's important to delineate that because this is a very dangerous drug. If you're not experiencing a need for this, this can really have some serious side effects, both from a mental standpoint, obviously, but also physiologically. How your body is going to respond to it. You're already dealing with him being dosed with fentanyl, which is it pushes the individual into a depressed respiratory state. And many times that's the mechanism for them dying. And then you have this outlier of Seroquel, which is to say that it would be it would be contraindicated as something you should not do is certainly an understatement. It can cause all kinds of heart problems relative to these individuals, everything from hyper to hypotension in an acute phase. What is really intriguing about this, Jesse, is that what the medical examiner is saying relative to the drug. Note, they're not saying that they drew this up and this was discovered in his bloodstream. They're saying that this was found in his stomach content. Mm-hmm. So that means that this drug was applied to him within just a couple of hours of him dying. Because, the digestive system moves at a predictable rate.
Right.
Okay. And so if you have gastric content, and at the risk of being too graphic, I'll try to soft pedal it a little bit. But at autopsy, one of the things that occurs is that the stomach is literally removed and tied off at both ends. And we very carefully go through the contents of the stomach in a very controlled manner at autopsy, and we will collect all of the gastric content that is therein. That'll be placed in a tube, and then that is actually examined at the tox lab, separate from blood and urine and all those other things.
That's good to know, because people are looking at this and saying, wait, if it wasn't his medication and it was hers, could she have slipped it into that drink? Would that be a way that it could have gotten into his stomach?
Yeah, it could have been. Or, and here's the one thing that we don't know, Jesse, is that many times at autopsy, one of the things, if you go through and you read a forensic autopsy report, the pathologist, when there's actually a section, some will have a subsection called gastric content, and then sometimes it'll just fall under under the digestive system. But either way, if there is particulate, what appears to be pill matter is what they'll refer to it as, because it doesn't change a lot when it enters the stomach. Remember, pills have coatings on them. They're very resilient. Some of them are time release, that sort of thing. So you can still appreciate these in place. And I really wonder if, when the pathologist was taking a look at the content, if they actually saw pill fragments, or if this was something that was ground up so fine that he ingested it. I don't really know how water soluble it is, though.
That's really interesting, because in other words, you're saying if it was ground up and placed in the drink, that he wouldn't have noticed this, versus if it was a solid pill. And it also matters because it would determine how long the pill was there. Like, for example, if he ingested it, I don't know, 7 hours before versus right, the time he drank this drink, that would been they're able to determine that, right?
Yeah, and I'd be very surprised if he were to ingest a liquid. I'm just arbitrarily pulling this number. You had mentioned 7, that there would still be evidence in the stomach at 7 hours. I think that you have to tighten down that time window.
Or she gave him a pill saying it was something else. Like, here, this is a, but real quick, if you don't know this, it's fine.
Sure.
Would on the pill, would it say what it is? Does it look like a different kind of medication?
It depends on the branding.
Okay.
And it'll be stamped, essentially. And all these pills have some kind of unique stamp that goes along with them. For Seroquel, I'm not sure. I don't think it's a scored pill, though, where it has the line that goes down the middle where you can break it in two. It is prescribed, again, for people that have serious psychotic issues. And the fact that I think it says a lot about her.
So if she really did if she, is allegedly gave him this pill in conjunction with the drink, in conjunction with fentanyl, that would have deadly consequences? Have you ever heard of someone ODing from this, a toxic, fatal interaction?
No. And okay, let's back up. I've never heard of anyone specifically ODing on Seroquel. It doesn't mean that it hasn't happened. I think the potential could exist. However, here's the key. Fentanyl itself, you don't know what you're getting. When you say fentanyl, we're not talking about pharmaceutical grade fentanyl like you would be administered, or a doctor in the hospital for pain relief. All right. If this is coming from a drug dealer, there's a high probability this is something that is manufactured outside of a pharmaceutical company. So you don't know what the mixture is going to be with that. Now, on top of that, and it's going to have the fentanyl properties, but on top of that, you introduce this other drug into this deadly mix, and that's where the lethality comes in, Jesse.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because in the affidavit, they said that the fentanyl that was in his system was, quote, illicit and not pharmaceutical grade. So they were able to determine that this was like, street stuff. But going back now, so she's prescribed this. She claims to detectives it's a sleeping aid. I believe authorities have requested her medical records to get to the bottom of this. Have you ever heard it being used as a sleeping aid? And if it wasn't prescribed as a sleeping aid and she wasn't honest with detectives, what do we think about this?
Oh my God. There's so many other drugs she could be prescribed for having difficulty sleeping, like Ambien, that is specifically there for that purpose. You would have to be, in order for, I think, any physician that is rightly practicing, there would have to be a rationale to go to Seroquel. It certainly would not
as a sleeping aid.
Yeah, as a sleeping aid, it would not be the first choice on the list. It's going to cause drowsiness. As a matter of fact, I've heard of people that have taken Seroquel, and if they're in like an acute psychotic phase and they're given this medication, it drags them down so low where they almost become like zombies, and they can sleep for hours and hours. Some people have slept for up to 48 hours on this stuff. So that gives you, it gives you some idea as to how powerful this stuff is. Yeah.
And if this was prescribed to her, she would have known that, which again, if you're going to poison your husband and you want him dosed and you want him lethargic or you want him zombied out, again, I don't know, but that's where I'm starting to go with this medication. Now, I
don't know. In a hypothetical, I could go with purpose and intent.
Yeah,
when you begin to think about it. Yeah.
Well, that's what leads me to this next part, because the fact that she was prescribed this medication, my mind now goes to mental health defense. So the Cleveland Clinic, the website says that this drug, it's an antipsychotic medication. You mentioned talks about schizophrenia, bipolar, balances the level of dopamine and serotonin in your brain. But the Utah statute says that it is a defense to a prosecution under any statute or ordinance that the defendant, as a result of a mental condition, lacked the mental state required as an element of the offense charge. And for aggravated murder, you need to prove intention. You need to prove that they did this intentionally or knowingly. So now I'm wondering if she's being treated for what could be a very serious psychotic condition. Does that lead you to think that maybe she might have a mental health defense?
Oh, quite possibly. But as you know, with mental health defense, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because if she is out of her mind, psychotic, how does she have the ability to begin to formulate this idea where she could allegedly, this is a hypothetical, weaponize a prescribed medication? How in that higher realm of thinking, I'm going to try to take out my husband. So what can I do in order to facilitate that? Well, I have enough good sense to know that these two things, if you place them together, there's a high probability that if it doesn't kill an individual, it certainly could put them in a coma.
And by the way, just to take a step back from this case, we know that it's been alleged that this wasn't even the first time that Kouri had tried to poison Eric, that Eric had broke out in hives. He had trouble breathing after eating a sandwich that was prepared by Kouri the month before his death. Eric became ill in Greece a few years back after Kouri gave him a drink, and he allegedly said that she was trying to kill him. He reportedly told loved ones that if something happened to him, Kouri was to blame. I mean, what do you make of that in your experience in terms of seeing somebody who's accused or found guilty of poisoning another? Is there usually attempts beforehand? Because let's be clear, her attorneys have said, quote, there has not been a single text message or other document turned over in discovery to support the allegation that Eric ever believed Kouri attempted to poison him. So you tell me what you think about the alleged past actions.
Well, I
or
think
attempts.
that yeah, and I think that you would have to go back and kind of, the circumstances. I found the circumstances in Greece kind of interesting, going all the way back, and now in light of this finding that they've released relative to the discovery, you're not going to have a local fentanyl dealer in Greece if you're traveling over there. So what kind of agent could have been applied to him over there that would have caused this kind of reaction? Now, I guess you could take fentanyl tablets there and maybe they wouldn't look at it. I have no idea, but it's kind of risky. So I certainly hope that from a toxicological standpoint, they're going to take a very broad spectrum view at this. And I'm sure that they probably have. And I mean, nothing at this point, Jesse, nothing would be off the table for me. I would even consider things like heavy metals as well. And hoping also that at his autopsy, the medical examiner, which I have no doubt that they did, took sufficient sampling at the autopsy, everything from organ tissue, the hair with roots, nail clippings. I just hope that they did everything that they possibly could to take a look, to go down every possible avenue that they could to glean as much info as possible.
Joseph Scott Morgan, forensic death investigator from Jacksonville State University, host of the Body Bags podcast. My good friend, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
There is so much more to learn about this case, and I hope that you will join us at the live stream this coming Friday, March 15th at 9 p.m. Eastern with Kathleen Hewtsen. So what do you think about the Kouri Richins case? Please leave a comment letting us know what you think. We all want to know what you think, and thank you so much for watching.